Hello, I'm Gabriel Hoefler, and I was the systems and narrative designer for this game, Somniphobia. Somniphobia is a classic, fixed-camera, survival horror game with roguelike elements. Somniphobia is a game that wears its inspirations on its sleeve, but nothing was put into the game just because another survival horror game did it. Each mechanic was designed for a reason and had many iterations. There are quite a few things I would like to discuss in this video, but for the sake of time, I will only be going over some of the combat systems in this game. For the player, combat is fairly simple. The player character has two weapons. The first is a melee weapon, a pipe, that they can use to attack enemies up close. The second is a ranged weapon, a nail gun, which costs ammo to fire. Both weapons need to be readied or aimed by holding down right click and pressing left click to attack. Because the game uses fixed camera angles, aiming had to be something that a lot of thought was put into. Early on we discussed letting the player aim by moving the mouse, however it was decided on using A and D, because the player already uses those to turn since the game uses tank controls, so they would be more used to it and not have to suddenly switch. Somniphobia, like many survival horror games, is a resource management game at its core, and so nailgun ammo is a valuable and rare resource. To stop the pipe from being overpowered, using the pipe costs stamina, which is also used while running. While out of stamina, the player cannot swing the pipe or run. Though, unlike ammo, stamina still replenishes automatically while walking or standing. So in addition to the added risk of getting up close to enemies in order to attack, the pipe is also a bit slower than the nailgun, costing more of a player's limited time. Because the nailgun is ranged, more effort had to go into designing and building it to work well and feel good in the game. For starters, while aiming the nailgun, a red flashlight attached to the gun turns on. This is an additional piece of feedback to show where the player is aiming. Early in production, the aiming used a partial lock-on system, where, when the player aims the gun, it aims at the closest enemy with a cone in front of the character but does not lock on. So in order to shoot an enemy multiple times, you would have to track them by turning. Through testing, this proved alright at close distances, but very awkward elsewhere, especially if the enemy was not on screen. So it was changed to a permanent lock-on system. If there are multiple enemies, the player can aim at another one by turning to face it. For a while, it was almost impossible to miss a shot, as the aiming was very accurate. This made the combat too simple, easy, and significantly less scary. To fix this, I added a slight randomness to the shots, effectively making an aim cone. This aim cone is communicated to the player through the flashlight on the nailgun, as the cone lines up closely with the light being cast. One of the combat mechanics that adds to the horror and roguelike elements of Somniphobia is that enemy health is semi-random. This is so that the player never truly feels comfortable in their ability to fight their way out of a situation. The enemy can have 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50 health, or 1 to 5 hits worth of health. In order to better avoid situations that were too difficult or too easy, these values are weighted similar to a bell curve. Values are on screen now. 30 health is the most common, while some enemies will either have 10 health more or less, and then there are the enemies with either 10 health or 50 health, which are rare. This is so that the enemies feel unpredictable and threatening to the player, while still being fair. Initially, there was no change to the physical look of enemies based on their health. However, during testing, some of the playtesters were confused by this. They thought they were getting stealth attack criticals, or if the enemy had more health, they were missing shots, despite the game giving them feedback that they were hitting. To help fix this, enemies that have standard health also have standard size and speed. Weaker enemies were made a little faster and smaller, and stronger enemies were made a little bit slower and larger. This had an added effect of adding some visual variety to the enemies in the game. There are some more aspects to combat, as well as many other systems in Somniphobia, but that is as much as I wanted to cover this video. Thank you very much for watching.